Elevation Nation coming to you. I wasn't actually sure where this guest was going to be calling in from and joining Elevation Nation, so I had to ask him before we joined, but he's in the States. He's stateside in Scottsdale, Arizona. The reason I said that, and I'll let him do a little intro on himself, but we have on Stone Fredrickson, a solo traveler, and how we met him is why I love the fact that we have this podcast, because we have an excuse to meet really cool and amazing people. We met Stone from an introduction of one of our best friends, Miles Grossman, who currently, many of you know, is traveling around the world. They, of course, hit it off. Miles then texts Parker and I freaking out like, dude, you guys have to meet this guy, Stone. You have to have him on the podcast. He's perfect for the nation. Stone and I hop on a call. Within 2 seconds, we hit it off, and I was like, yeah, Miles is exactly right. And so, long story short, we are now all here as part of the nation. Stone, welcome to the podcast. We are so excited and honored to have you, man.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Dude, I'm pumped. I mean, Stone, you're going to have to walk us through the story. I know you just told us, but you have to share with Elevation Nation. How'd you even meet Miles? I mean, Miles has gone on this journey. He left us months ago, and then, I mean, walk us through what happened.
Yeah, so to give you guys some context, so I was just solo traveling for like 3 months, but to give you context why and how I got there, and kind of like the beginning of my journey. So it really started out during COVID. I was 17 years old in high school, had a lot of time on my hands, and just got really passionate about money and business. I didn't want to go to college, didn't want to do the traditional route. I just thought I would have something in store for me, something different. So I learned about like e-commerce and drop shipping, print on demand, all these like side hustles online. And I tried to do them online for about 6-7 months, 8 months. But nothing really worked. So I just stepped back, understood like how to build wealth, income, knew that I needed to get a job. So I got a minimum wage job, started making TikToks about my experience with e-commerce, how these gurus were, scamming people, and like my what I believed in with finance and making money. So that account was on TikTok was called Stone Fredrickson, and it's still up, and I'm still posting on it. And so I grew that to about 50,000 followers in like a couple months. And then everyone at my job, at my school, was wondering how the hell I grew. And so they were asking me all these questions, and rather than repeating myself, I just started a second account talking about how to grow on TikTok, my lessons, my beliefs, and then grew that account to 100,000 followers in less than 2 months. And then I turned 18, started my social media agency / like consulting firm, I guess you could call it. And that was going into senior year. By the end of senior year, I was making well over 5 figures a month, and basically convinced my parents that I don't have to go to college. So I chose not to go to college, and just continued posting and scaling up my company from there, traveling a little bit more, going to conferences, events, and stuff like that. But I didn't really take any time off since then. I've been working hard, every day for the past 2 years straight. And you know what? I was like, I need to, since I didn't even go to college, I missed out on friends, a lot of experiences, a lot of, cool things that you get to do in college. So I was like, and I'm not going to go to college, so I need to do something else. So I chose to solo travel Europe and Costa Rica for about 3 months. And while I did that, I met Miles in Switzerland. We hit it off pretty well. I was just telling the story of how we hit it off. It was pretty funny. We were in this hostel, and a lot of people in this hostel were more Asian, so didn't really jive with me or Miles. And then all of a sudden, I'm the only one sitting in the lobby watching Red Zone and NFL. And Miles pulls up a chair right behind me, and we just chatted a little bit and hit it off the rest of the trip.
It's incredible. I mean, it's amazing. What are the odds, first of all, that two people like come together and meet each other? Obviously, like you're traveling, he's traveling, Red Zone, football brings together everyone, right? But I mean, talk about your story, dude. Like, let's take a step back. Like, forget Miles. Like, you didn't go to college. You're like, you have this idea, this vision of what you wanted in your life. You convinced your parents to say, you know what? I have something here, and I want to go on all in on it. Like, let's talk more through that. Like, maybe even peel back before you even started that first TikTok account. What was like the inspiration for you? Were you always thinking college was the path or not?
No, not really. Because I learned at an early age. I must preference that I'm a little bit more mature than people my age. I'm 20 years old right now, and if you haven't realized, I'm a little bit more mature. My brothers are older than me. Everyone on my hockey team was older than me. So I always hung out with people that were older than me. So I realized at a young age, especially in high school, you party, you drink, you do the fun thing. I always looked at that like, this really isn't going anywhere. This is kind of dumb, and like it's just college is basically the same thing at a bigger stage. And I'm like, there's really not like,
and you're paying
I'm basically
a shit ton of money for
massive
it.
Vacation. Exactly. I'm like, I'm basically just taking massive amounts of vacation time. I'm not really doing anything. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not making progress on my life, so to speak, or my career. And so I was just like, I either work now and I set myself up when I'm mid 20s, late 20s, 30s, or I take this time to, screw around in high school and college and then work and then maybe set myself up 30, 40, 50, when I'm 50 years old, which is what most people do. And so I chose like, all right, screw it. I'm going to sacrifice my time now to create the dream life that I want basically for the rest of my life. And, there was tons of other forms of inspiration I got, from mentors online to even my parents, like coming back home and seeing my parents work their asses off when I knew that they wanted to be doing other things, like taught me that number one, it's all because of money. And number two, like they should be doing other things at their age. Like I should be working and I shouldn't be taking money from them, which is pretty common in Scottsdale. Like they get allowances, you get $1,000 a month or a couple $100 a month, go spend it on whatever you want. And that's a lot. That's what my friends were doing too. And that was another inspiration of mine because all my friends would get all this money, go spend it on stupid shit. And I'm like, you are not just taking money from people's time, from your parents, you are taking their time. And that's what I realized too, is like money is a direct correlation of people's time. Like literally, if you have a lot of money, you just have people's stored time. Because when you could pay someone $20 an hour to do a task, you're literally taking away their time. And so like I had all these like amazing realizations that inspired me and just kind of like blew my mind. The compound interest calculator blew my mind. The fact that I could invest $200
nuts
every month or $100 for like 30 years and I could be a millionaire was just mind blowing to me. And so all these things kind of came together at basically the right time to where I was just like, okay, I need to get my feet wet with business. I don't even know what a conversion means. So like I need to get in the door. I started doing business like e-commerce, drop shipping. All of those things failed. And I probably started 5 or 6 businesses, probably more than that. Like if you include little like flipping stuff on Amazon or whatever, like, so, and I actually have a video on my TikTok that starts off by saying, I failed at 5 different businesses and it's made me 6 figures. And then I tell my story and then where I'm at. So, that just goes to show you like, you're bound to like fail or lose, but you only really truly fail if you stop. And I didn't. I just kind of pivoted, try new things. I was like, okay, well, this is where all the attention is. This is what Gary Vee's saying. Get on this TikTok platform. All right, I'm just going to post about stuff that I'm passionate about, which was, money, finance, business, and, something just kind of clicked and I just kept writing it. And then another opportunity came about with coaching people on TikTok. And then, that built up and then other opportunities come up and you just kind of, if you would have told me when I was starting that e-commerce stuff that I would be coaching people on TikTok or about TikTok, I would have told you you're crazy. But it's just that's how business is. You just keep kind of solving problems and keep going with the flow.
I was really excited for this podcast. One, because Stone, like we were like brothers from a different mother when we first met. We could have talked all night. But two, because we had so much in common and you have this elevator mindset, I was like, Parker, we're not really going to prep much for this one. Like, Stone's going to take this in a direction, and we're just going to go with it. Like, we could talk about so many different things. One that I want to talk about, though, that you did bring up that I'm super passionate about is financial literacy in young people, right?
Yeah.
I think, to your point, growing up in Scottsdale, Parker's from Baltimore, I'm from Chicago. You know, some of us are lucky and have parents that maybe give us an allowance, to your point. Some of us are even luckier and have parents that taught us the value of money and what compounding interest and credit card points and all these things can do for us. So I want to talk to you. You said you were mature beyond your years, right? Which is so obvious. But with a lot of young people, right, financial literacy is something that they think is a later thing for them to figure out. How did you start to first grasp this concept of not like making money per se, but this psychology and value behind money and how you don't necessarily have to follow a traditional path to accumulate and acquire it, and you can acquire it in smarter ways than trading time for it?
It really came from well, first off, I remember this conversation clear as day. I was talking with my parents, and I was talking about me not going to college. And they were like, well, you got to, because we want to make sure that you have security for your family, that you can provide for yourself, and then for your future family. I go, all right, so it's money. And they're like, yeah. And so I knew right then and there that money was the leverage point of this decision. But then I look at, even like I told you guys earlier, of coming back home and seeing them work, like I knew that was because of money. So I knew at an early stage, at like, you know, when I was maybe 15, 16, that like money controls your life whether you like it or not. And that goes for every single person. And even though it didn't really control my life when I was 15, I knew it was going to control my life when I was 18, 20, 25, and beyond. So I needed to understand money. So I went in my room and just started learning about money. Literally, like, what is money? How do you make money? Why are the rich rich? Why are the poor poor? Like, all of the search, results that you could
I can't imagine some of this stuff you came across, though. I can't imagine some of that stuff. You're like, you're
some
filtering
of it was
through.
fluff, but some of it, yeah, I mean, some of it is fluff, but some of it is actually, real stuff. And I think the other thing I would do is when I would listen to some of these people that would come online and talk about money or investing, like a Grant Cardone or an Alex Ramosi, and I'm like, what is he even saying? Because mind you, at this point, I didn't even know what a conversion rate is, let alone a mortgage, FHA loan, whatever in between there. So I would go to my dad and I'm like, Dad, can you explain this like I'm a 3-year-old? And he would just break it down. And then again, you just build, knowledge of this. And then I realized that, like, okay, the normal trajectory of wealthy people is they work. And this is why a lot of people say, like, your first 100,000, your first 1 million is the hardest to make, is because you have to trade your time to gain that money. You have to develop a skill that people are in need and that is going to solve their problems to earn that money. And then once you earn that money, now you have resources to get more money. This is something that I learned from Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank. He was like, I view my money, my dollars, as soldiers that can go out and work for me. And the more I put out to work for me, the more I could get back. And so I thought of my money like that. Even if it's just putting it into an index fund and producing 10 cents on the dollar each year, because it's 10% or whatever, that's at least still working, and I don't have to work, for that. And you just it just compounds. The more you do it and you just keep investing in it, the more it'll grow. And, the more wealthy you get, the bigger the scale is. I think majority of millionaires own own real estate, and then the billionaires really are like the VCs, and they own the businesses. So it's like the more you scale, it's just a game, and this game has different scales to it. And so that's kind of the inspo behind it, and how I kind of learned that you need to make money up front to produce wealth and invest into it.
It's a hard game, right? If it was easy, everyone would be doing it, first of all, right? Second of all, I think it's really hard, especially for a young person. I mean, Stone, Sam and I are 28. You're a little bit younger than us, but it's still difficult because you have to make a conscious decision is, okay, I trade my time for some form of money, whether it's posting videos on TikTok, right? That took time to create that, and that hopefully brings you some value in return. For Sam and myself, we work a full-time job. We trade our time, which gets us a paycheck that we put in our bank account. The hard part is to determine what the hell you're going to do with that money in your bank account. And I think young people, we just talked about it. You can make one of two choices, right? It's, know that the younger you are, the more opportunity that you're able to take advantage of compound interest and really grow that wealth over a long period of time because time is in your favor as a young person. But most people fall into the trap of saying, you know what? I want that thing. I want that vacation. I want that experience. And that is so difficult, especially for a young person. And to your point about not going to college, most people today in day and age fall into, hey, I'm going to take out $150,000 in loans and then realize down the road that they're not going to be financially free until they get rid of that debt and start really saving. So my question to you is how do you hold yourself accountable when you find yourself sometimes falling into that money trap?
You can do two options. Either one, rely on discipline, and I define discipline as doing the things you need to do regardless of how you're feeling. So investing into that index fund, investing into your business, investing into your dream job because it is needed for you to reach that goal. Or making a lifestyle shift. Instead of just putting all your money in your bank account, put some away, put some in that index fund, that brokerage account, and act like it's a tax. Like you don't own that money anymore. And that's what I do. Like a lot of my investment accounts, I don't even look at. It's just dollar cost average, just auto transfer. It's auto investing. And that's what I recommend because especially as, us young kids, like we're instant satisfaction, instant dopamine. We can buy those new shoes. Perfect. I got my new paycheck in. Boom. I got this. Like when I got a new paycheck in, it was a third of my paycheck because the other 2/3 were in my investment accounts. So I'd get my paycheck and I'm like, okay, like when I worked at my job, I'm like, okay, yeah, it was like $300. But like when I would stack that up and then I would, do a manual transfer to my investment accounts because I was just pretty frugal. I didn't really need anything. And that was another thing I would say is like, whenever you're like, oh, I want that, like right there, you should stop yourself. Like, cause I would only buy things that I needed. And 90% of what I thought I needed, I just wanted. And so it's like, do you want it or do you need it? Because there's a huge difference. And so that's another thing I would say.
I'm sure you learned that so much. Like you said, you went traveling for 3 months. Like the value of what you actually need. First of all, if you want to buy something, you got to realize, shit, I got to carry this everywhere. Like, do you really need it? And do you really want to carry it? But like, I imagine that how those 3 months traveling, backpacking has taught you, I mean, financially, obviously, but just life in general. Oh my God.
It also taught me, how many things are tremendously undervalued, but also overvalued. And also that like plays a role in how you perceive certain things. Like I find a designer bag that's $10,000 way overvalued, but I see solo traveling for 3 months straight and spending 10 grand tremendously undervalued in terms of the grand scheme of things. And so I made a video actually about this, and I'm like, it's crazy how many people will save up for their next beer, their next drug, or their next porn subscription, but they won't save up to go check something off on their bucket list because that's not it. Because it takes a little bit to get there, and it's not instant. But the point of it is that that's gonna stay with you for the rest of your life. That next beer really isn't. That next porn subscription isn't. And so you're really just putting a Band-Aid over the real problem with those. And I think it's crazy when I look at certain things, even like staying at a hostel. Like I think staying at a nice hostel is tremendously undervalued because you meet so many cool people, you get to do so many activities, free tours, free breakfast, whatever it is. Like And then you look at a hotel that's like $3,000 a night, and you get none of those things, but maybe you get some like, shampoo and conditioner. It's just like, it's crazy. And I think it's so important that you gain that perspective. I think perspective is key in all elements of life, but especially money.
I think the earlier you can start to develop these, one, habits, but two, understanding. Like, I worked at a mini golf course in high school, and I made $8.75 an hour. And I remember every day after doing whatever X amount of hours of a shift being like, I just got 3 Chipotle burritos, 4 Chipotle, like everything in my mind, because that's when Chipotle was all I ate, like equated to how many meals I could pay for at Chipotle. And it sounds silly, but like that's how I started to grasp the value of money. Like, to me at that point in time, the only skill I had was handing out putters at a golf course. That was the only place that was paying me. So therefore, I traded an hour for a set fixed fee that then I was able to turn into a common service or good that I bought. To me, that helped paint this picture of money. Then I started to realize if I bought one less Chipotle burrito and was able to invest a little bit more money in, I think I don't even know if Robinhood was out at the time. I might have used something else, like started to invest in stocks. Okay, that's now growing even faster than I thought. And I didn't even work for it. And it's all these principles that I think, for me personally, college didn't teach me that. High school didn't teach me that. I'm very lucky that my dad was like, dude, you're 15, 16, like we're opening a credit card in your name so you can start building credit and learn how to be responsible. And like you have X amount of money, like one of my funniest things that I hear, and I guess I'm built different, so I'm not judging people, but like people are scared to open up credit cards because they're like, well, with my debit card, I always know how much is in there. I can never overdraft. And I was like, first off, yeah, you can. Like, you're just literally going to go into debt. And second off, like, you can take a step back and be a little bit more disciplined. To your point, Stone, like you were strategic in how your paychecks went in, right? Mm-hmm. Taking money out and auto investing it. So I think the point I'm trying to get at is financial literacy is something that I think needs to be taught at a global scale. Stone, you took it into your own hands, as did Parker and myself, of like, we now have a ton of tools and education online so you can learn these skills. And I know for certain, myself, I'm going to throw Stone in here too. If you have questions on financial literacy as a young adult and you want to just ask or bounce ideas off of us, like hit us up. Again, like I truly believe that this is the most important thing that you guys can develop besides networking as a young adult. So hit our line. We are not financial advisors, but we can give you tips, I guess, legally.
You just pick up a book. I think I read, I picked up Rich Dad, Poor Dad last week.
Yeah.
I think I read it in like 3 days. It's so easy. It's and it's not like, oh, I'm going to pick this up and learn like, holy shit, the holy grail of making money. But it's a reminder to like, to your point about accountability, Stone. It's like, it's a reminder of what I need to do and the way I need to think to hold myself accountable to when it comes to money. Because one day, hopefully I could be a rich dad, not a poor dad. And if you've read the book, you understand what I mean. We're not talking about an actual, like,
you better not be a dad anytime soon, buddy.
I said one day, Sam. Did you hear that?
I'm just making sure. Just got
it's not soon. We got bachelor party first. Stone, we're going to Columbia. In nice. 1 month. It's going to be Miles is joining us. Miles is still going around the world, and he's making a pit stop in Colombia to meet us in Medellin, and then he's going to come to Cartagena with us, and then he's going to continue to travel in South America. And that's in a month and a half.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow.
So Stone, we talked a lot about financial literacy, right? We talked about you having a little bit of a different mindset when it came to making money and you deciding not to go to college. I want to ask you, you mentioned and hinted at this. College, I agree, overvalued. Sorry to people out there listening. Overvalued, in my opinion. But there were some aspects that I think were great, right? You mentioned meeting friends is one thing. That's how I met Parker and Miles, right?
Yeah.
What are some things around college that you think you are lacking because you didn't experience them? And how are you now as a young adult post that world starting to try to fill those gaps?
Such a great question. I would say one of them is just friends in general. Obviously, I have friends, but they're in college. They're doing their own thing. They're across the country, and they're developing new friends, which weakens our relationship. That's just how it works. So, friends is definitely one. I would say just social skills in general, whether it be meeting new people, approaching that girl, like whatever it is, like that's definitely something. And then along with that is loneliness. For those past 2 years before I took that solo traveling trip, I was just grinding my ass off in my room. Maybe go to the gym 4 or 5 times a week, but that was pretty much it. And that could really spiral into a life that's not really that enjoyable. And that's where I was just like, I'm not really burnt out. I'm just bored, because I think the word burnout insinuates that you have nothing else to offer. And I had a ton to offer. I was just bored. And I wasn't experiencing life. I felt like I was still a 17-year-old. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then just like getting out of the bubble, I feel like there's something to getting out of where you were born, and your quote unquote home, and getting out of that shell and experiencing what else life has to offer and just what else there is in the world. And so to answer your question of like what I'm doing to solve that is definitely traveling more, but being a little bit more strategic with my travels, like checking off my bucket list, not only that, but going where maybe my clients are or where other creators are that I could connect with and collab with. Maybe if there's a business that I know or a brand that I know in a certain place, hitting them up for free content, or to get something in return. I just did that in Costa Rica. One of my past clients connects me with this girl in Tamarindo that owns a fishing charter and a hotel, and she hooked me up and I gave her some content. So it's like that, and just building on the networking too. I think Sam, you and I talked about this on the first call, is like my next 10 years are really focused on, in terms of a business sense, are focused on knowledge and connections, because those are the two things that'll monetize forever and make money forever. If you chase the next crypto thing or the next drop shipping thing, that'll just come up and down. But if you chase knowledge and connections, like I could pivot right. If my TikToks went down, I could pivot like this or go work for someone that's 7-8 figure entrepreneur that's building a personal brand, or that's building a community, or that's speaking in schools or whatever. Like I have opportunities and options, and just resources. And so it's kind of building all of those, and kind of solving all of those at once. I think when I turn 21, I'll do a U.S. kind of solo traveling journey, maybe a van life or something like that. But I think
you better come by to New York and DC and visit us. That's all I'm 100%. Saying, bro.
Those are on my bucket list for sure. Yeah.
Oh man.
I think you have to be over 21 to experience America for what it truly is. Yeah.
Totally. Man, dude. First of all, I just like, you're 20 years old. That's fucking crazy. Like, because the way you're speaking.
Just turned 20, but yeah.
The way you're
are we
speaking,
too old to be friends with you? Because, like, I feel like you would fit right in with our friend group, bro.
But, like, I'm like, the way you're speaking about how you're approaching the world, like, if we can spread that to more and more people, man, the world would be such a even better place than it already is. To your point about connections and relationships and continuing to learn, I completely agree with you. Sam and I got full-time jobs. This is something that we do on top of spending 40 to 50 hours a week as consultants for a Big Four company. Like, we know the value of networking and meeting people and enjoying time, because to your point, most people, I think that they're going to get something right out of it, and they want or need something right out of it. But Sam and I know is that, it's the long game that you're playing. It's that connection that you made with Miles, that Miles, when he comes back and decides to do whatever he's going to do, you have that relationship with him. And in 20 years, if you guys cross paths or you see like, wow, Stone's crushing it, he has something to offer or value, I'm going to hit him up. Hey, let's get a beer. And then also let's talk about this opportunity that we can make happen together. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool, dude. One question I have for you is, you're talking a lot of business and the way you approach your life. I'm curious, to your point, you said that you got bored when you were at home. When you were traveling, how did you take care of yourself, being away from your family, your friends, and kind of just going on your own?
Yeah, it's a great question. First, mentally, I have to journal. There's just so much going up going up here. So I gotta get it out on paper. So journaling was super important for me. And in terms of physically taking care of myself, in Europe especially, there's a lot of walking. I went to the gym here and there, but and I got pretty good genes, so I didn't. It's not like I fell off the curve there. So the main way I was taking care of myself was just like experiencing what I wanted to experience, journaling on those, and learning more about like how I want my life to look like when I get back, and why I was feeling bored and what I was doing that made me feel that way and what I should do more of, and yeah, all those sorts of things.
I think, taking care of yourself is something that took me a while to learn, and I'm still learning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Parker knows this. Like, I started going to therapy a couple years ago. One of the coolest things I did for myself, right? Taboo for a very long time. Our company was like, we pay for it. I was like, well, I'm going to try it, like, see what's up. It's been great. Just like journaling, right? Like, to be able to get some of your thoughts and feelings out, I think is really important. And so whatever ways you kind of can remind yourself to take care of you, like solo traveling, everyone's like, yeah, it's a vacation, you're chilling. Like, it's a long time away from home. Like, it's still hard. You still have to take care of your body and your mind and all of that. And so I think, to Parker's point, I think it's an interesting question, because I remember when I was abroad. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I talked to Miles last week, and we're just catching up. Dude's like sitting on a beach, just like in the middle. I think he's in Vietnam right now.
Vietnam, yeah.
Just whatever. He's just talking. I'm like, are you like how are you approaching this? Miles and I have really deep conversation. He's like, it might look like on the outside I'm just traveling, and yeah, I'm enjoying every second of my life, but I am working. I'm working on me. And that is the most important work that I'm ever going to do, probably maybe in my life, because I don't know, Stone, what you know about Miles' experiences. Miles has gone through some experiences in his life, and he wanted this trip to work on himself and to focus on who he is at his core, what he wants, and what inspires him. And hopefully when he comes back, he's able to grasp that, know that so freaking well that, to his point, is when he's back into reality or with his people, that he is just going to continue to feel those good vibes and move forward. And so I'm like, wow, that's such a perspective. Like, Miles is like, I wake up, I meditate, I journal, like I am working. It's just different than what the normal person would say.
It's such a good point, because when you asked me like what I was doing to take care of myself, it was like everything. Like everything I did was taking care of myself and was building myself. A lot of people, they label solo traveling or backpacking like you're finding yourself, but I like that's hard for me. It's like finding your passion. I like to call it creating yourself, creating these experiences, creating this dream life that you want to live. And before my trip, I asked myself two questions: who's the person I like want to become in 6 months, 12 months, and then so on. And then what needs to change in order for me to be that person? And so it was like, the biggest thing was like social skills and like having relationships and like experiencing life for what it actually is, and checking off that bucket list, going to that, monument or museum or whatever it is. And I did that, and I was doing that every day. And even if it's just like traveling in general, like going to the airport, taking the bus, like you are practicing yourself being resourceful and communicating with people, and keeping yourself organized, and like making sure that you're on time to places, and being productive. And so it's such a good point. You're always working when you're traveling.
And with that, right, I mean, this is why I knew you were going to be a great guest. It ties in perfectly into what Parker and I preach, which is, a lot of young people come to us, Stone, and like Sam, Parker, like, you guys were lost as young adults. You guys have a podcast and a company. You have great jobs. You've figured it out. First off, I didn't figure anything out. I figured out how to get to this next stage. I figured out how to start a podcast. I figured out how to start going to therapy. I figured out what brings me joy and happiness, right? Like, sure, I figured some things out. I still feel like
you still got a lot of things to figure out.
Like, yeah, like I don't have it figured out, right? And so I think what we preach here at Elevation Nation is not like, you guys need to find a passion that you love, or you guys need to have a job that brings you in, right? Like, here's what we preach. It's something called mental fortitude. If we teach anything in this podcast, anything with our company, when we speak around to high school and college kids, we teach them how to activate mental fortitude, right? And I think it's something that every single elevator has and maybe doesn't even realize it. To us, mental fortitude is knowing who you are, knowing your vision and what you want, and knowing what fuels you, right? That changes for me almost every day. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like super cocky, confident Sam. Sometimes I wake up and I'm not feeling that, right? Like, so who I am changes daily. The vision I have for my future changes daily. And what drives me changes daily too. And so it's knowing how to tune into those things, that constant work that kind of is honing my mental fortitude skill. And so I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's so aligned with you in terms of constantly trying to create the life you want and consistently working on your network and knowledge and knowing who you are and what you want. It's like, Stone's figured some things out. You haven't figured everything out.
Not at all. And that's a great point. And that's why I don't really necessarily like the advice, find your passion, because people are going to misconstrue that with finding something they like doing. And oftentimes we don't like doing shit unless we're good at it. And the only way you are good at it is if you do it more and more and more and more. And people just don't like sucking. Alex Hormozi has this great quote. He's like, most people aren't rich because they can't wait 12 months. And I'm like, that is so true. And so,
wow, I love that.
So instead of find your passion, for me, what helped me is write out your values, your ideals, your beliefs, and then surprisingly enough, your irritations, because whatever we're irritated to reveals a passion. And then pursue a career or start a business that is revolving around that. And so a big irritation for me was seeing my friends spend their $500 allowance on bullshit. And so I was so irritated, but so passionate about learning what this money thing is and what we should be doing with it, because I know that some millionaire isn't going to be spending their $500 paycheck on this. They're going to be doing something else with it. So it's like, so I gained this passion to learn it and do it and do it. And I sucked and I sucked and I sucked, but that's just how you get better at it. Same thing with content, same thing with podcasting, same thing with writing a book, same thing with music, cooking, anything, professional sports. Like, you have to just put in the reps, especially when you're starting out with anything.
And that's why Sam and I love to say, once you have your mental fortitude figured out for yourself, you can lean on that as you go through those hard times in anything that you do. And that is where the elevating starts. That's the amazing thing about elevating. Once you figure who you are, what you want, and what inspires you out, lean on that as you continue to grind and hopefully go longer than 12 months in whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
So, Stone, before we
Love it.
Move into our next section of our rapid fire, I got one more question for you. What's next? Where are you headed?
Guatemala in January. Yeah, Guatemala in January. But right now I'm just focused on helping as many people as I can, whether it be for free or paid. I think I lost my roots after or before I traveled. I put my business over my content, and there is no business in my business model. There is no business without the content. So the content has to be number one. And the way I view content is just helping people get from point A to point B all for free within your content. I think if you do that, and that is your sole intention with any piece of content that you create, especially educational, then people will gain results from your content for free, pointing them back to you because you help them do that, which builds trust, relationship, and then you start to nurture that, and that could lead into something really magical. But yeah, I mean, I got Guatemala in January 10th, and then I don't know how long that's going to be or what that's going to entail or where I'm going to go after that. But I think it's just...
You said one way, right? One way flight.
One way, yeah. I booked a one-way ticket. I think I'll probably head south and
I
continue
feel like
to
you
do
might need to sneak south to Colombia around the time.
Oh,
that
man.
I'm just saying.
We got some open spots.
We might have room for you.
All right.
It's
Say
not that
less.
far.
Uh,
Yeah, it really isn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's only a plane ticket away. So yeah, I mean, heading down south, probably, we'll explore Central America, maybe South America as well. Continuing to travel, continuing to build relationships, connections, and just continuing to create content. I think content is one of those things very similar to fitness. It's like, number one, you got to do a lot of it, but like, you will never stop doing it if you truly understand the success behind it. It's indefinite. A lot of people will think, oh, I want to get that six pack, but once you get that six pack, you have to maintain it. It's the same thing with an audience. And so it's just continuing to create content, try new things, have fun. I think that's the biggest thing. I think that's the big kind of mission for 2024 is just to have fun. And that not the version of fun a lot of people my age view, but really, I think productive fun is a good way to put it.
It's beautiful goals.
Might be the episode title. Productive
Yeah,
fun.
right.
Ooh, that's productive
Fun.
fun. Yeah.
Just came up with it.
So I want to move us into our next segment here, Stone, our rapid fire segment. Parker and I have a couple questions that are just kind of fun ones we want to throw at you. First thing that comes to mind. All right, you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Parker and I, we think we've traveled a lot. You've also started to travel a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What's the favorite country that you've ever visited?
Italy.
Why?
I'm part Italian, but I will say the food, the history, like the food is. I want to preface this: the food is so good where you literally have to pick a bad spot to go eat. Just the difference of the cities is crazy. The history, like I said, is nuts. With you got Rome and just every city has its own unique kind of history behind it. And the variety of it, like I said, it's just every city's a little different. The food is a little different, and the people are different. More northern Italy, people are a little bit more, a little more strict, I would say, and just aren't as open. But once you go more and more south, I think they have become accustomed to the tourists and are a little more kind. But it's just cool. I just love it breeds culture, in my opinion.
Love Italy. What a place. I would say, Sam, you know my answer, don't you?
I don't know,
you
man.
don't?
We've been to a
I
lot of
thought you
places.
should. I always say China, without a doubt.
Do you?
Stone, I don't know if you've ever been, but...
I've never been, but I've heard.
Okay, well, Asia, next up. I mean, there's plenty of places to go, but there's something about... I remember when we landed, Sam and I...
Yeah, you
sat
gotta
next to each
tell
other.
that story,
We
Parker.
landed in Shanghai. Big-ass plane, 15-hour flight. We're like, oh, my God, we just got to get off this plane. Next thing you know, plane lands, and I looked outside. I'm like, what? Like, even when I landed, I'm like, this feels so different. You get out of the plane, walking through customs alone. Oh, my God. Craziness, madness. Then we get into the middle of Shanghai, or we had the drive, and I felt like I was on another planet. And I've never felt that way in my entire life. And I looked at Sam and I said, wow, I want more of this. And that, I assume, is the appeal, at least for me, of traveling, is that I want more of those feelings where I am so immersed in a different culture in life that is completely different than what I am at. That feeling is so addictive.
Mm-hmm.
And you forgot the best part. We're walking around the street. There's literally thousands of people, Chinese folks, walking around. And this old man with no teeth comes up to us. And he's like, are you guys American? And Parker and I were like, yes. And he was like, very cool. Do you know Stephen Curry? And we were like, not personally, but like, yeah. He's like, oh, okay. And walked away.
That was it. That was a
That's
whole
awesome.
interaction right there. Like
That's
6
really
a.m.
cool.
Great. It was so
But
funny.
yeah, to your point about culture, incredible history. Like, one last thing about China is, like, we think the other cities are like, other big cities in the world is like Shanghai is the New York of Asia. No, screw that. New York is the Shanghai of America. It is so fucking big. It's 3 times the size of New York, and it's got everything. Everything in Asia, from a business standpoint, runs through Shanghai. Crazy place. Just crazy.
Nuts.
Okay, next rapid fire. Obviously, we're going to go more with the traveling. What is one food that you had on your travels when you were in Europe that you enjoyed more than ever? And what was one food that you were like, never again?
Tapas in Spain. Unbelievable. One food I would have, but never again. Really anything in Switzerland. Switzerland, the food was awful, and it was tremendous.
Fondue?
Just so expensive. I had a $40 burger. This was with Miles. It was a $40 burger, and it was probably the worst burger I've ever had. So Switzerland, not really, big on the food there. Germany's kind of the same way. It's kind of just a bunch of like bratwurst or bratwurst, and just like or like
it's just brats and potatoes.
Brats and potatoes. Yeah, it's not the best, but it's all
Parker
right.
got
It's
to
the
say
culture.
his answer for the last one. I'm gonna chime in with mine. Best food I've ever had. I mean, it probably also is in Italy. I was in Florence and I went to the sandwich shop, and I still dream about this.
I think I went to that same sandwich shop.
Mozzarella, roasted red peppers, dude. Blew my mind. Worst thing I ever ate that I'll never eat again was with Parker and Miles. We were in Iceland, and there's this delicacy in Iceland. It's fermented shark, fermented in its own urine, like with it's gnarly. And there's a video of all of us, like they give it to you on a toothpick. It's a little cube, and you're supposed to like have it and then wash it down with like a shot of whatever, like Icelandic vodka. Bro, like Miles is like, well, I'm only having this once. Like I have to like figure. So he's like mushing it around in his mouth. Parker's doing the same, and then Parker's like, yo, is this like burning for anyone else? Like it's stinging. And so it was quite an experience. Essentially, like you have an like ammonia reaction to it, and it blows up your senses.
Never again. I forgot about the piss as the fermentation.
Yeah,
that
delicious.
was so gross.
Doesn't sound appealing.
All right, Stone. Last rapid fire. Sam and I are big readers. I'm looking at my big library behind the computer right now. I'm looking for a new book. What is one book recommendation that you have for Elevation Nation?
I think it depends on what you're trying to do. If it's like marketing or business, I think Alex Ramosi books are great. The $100 million offers and $100 million leads. Both phenomenal books. I think if you're trying to build connections and build relationships, I think How to Win Friends and Influence People, always top of the list there. And then personal finance, you brought it up earlier in this call, or not call, I'm so used to taking this podcast, is Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm a big fan of that. But I mean, I like, if you haven't read, you're reading if you're looking for a new book, I would definitely read those Alex Ramosi books. Yeah, I mean, I'm more of like a podcaster guy. Like, I don't really read that many books. Think and Grow Rich is another one if you haven't read that. Like, I think that one's a phenomenal book, but I'm sure you probably read that one. I'm sure you probably read a lot of the books.
These are good staples that we need refreshers on. To Parker's point, you picked back up Rich Dad Poor Dad. Like, I read it, 2-3 years ago. I should probably read it again. It's just, there's so many good books to learn from. It makes me laugh that we read so much fiction in like high school when I could have been reading these books, but whatever. I digress. All right, Stone, our last segment here to officially welcome you into Elevation Nation as our latest elevator. Every single person that's in Elevation Nation has something that we call your mental motto, and it's a phrase that you live your life by. So, Stone Fredrickson, what is your mental motto?
I'd say it's a quote from Bruce Lee. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's, if you want to learn how to swim, jump into the water. On dry land, no frame of mind is ever going to help you. And I think that's so important. Like I mentioned earlier, if you want to be a good podcaster, if you want to, create content, build this audience, if you want to be an entrepreneur, whatever it is, like if you want to be a Michelin star cook, you need to just jump in, because there's no frame of mind. We get so caught up in this analysis paralysis state, but like none of that is really going to help you. And even to the point of like reading books, like we read only, I mean, we remember and take in like, I think it's like 10% of what we read. But if we take notes on it, I think it's like 30%. If we, listen to it, I think it's like 50%. There's something at 70%, and then like 90% is like doing it. So it's just like, I learned, and I even made a video about this too. It's like, I didn't learn anything about business until I did this one thing, and that is take action and start building businesses. So you just need to dive in. You need to get your feet wet. If you're wanting to, create content, build audiences, the number one thing I tell people to do, and this is the first thing I tell my clients when they join my program, is post 3 times a day for 6 months straight, no matter what. No matter what your family say, no matter what your friends say, no matter how many followers you get, no matter how many views you get, 3 times a day for 6 months straight. It's totally doable once you pull it up and you put it up on your priority scale. I don't believe in we don't have time. I believe in priorities. And so that's kind of my life motto. I know it's a little long one, but I think taking action is super important. If you want to shorten it, it's take action.
It's a beautiful mental motto. Obviously one that we live by. There was a lot of apprehension on our side to start a company and a podcast. Like, we don't know what we're doing. And now I look at how far Parker and I have come with Elevation Nation and building this community and this business and this podcast and meeting these incredible human beings like yourself. And sometimes, to humble us, I go back and I listen to one of our first 10 episodes.
Yeah.
And how shitty
that's humbling.
Whew. At telling stories, at connecting with people, at ebbing and flowing and building off each other, right? Like, to many folks, and hopefully, Stone, you noticed this, it's like we wove in questions and stories and when to chime in and when to build back and when to, right? Like, we didn't know how to do that from the beginning. We've done this now almost 300 times. You learn that skill, right? And it helps you get better. And I can only imagine when we get to 1,000 episodes where we're going to be and what we're going to look like and how we're going to sound. And to your point, we had to jump in and buy these microphones and just do it.
100%.
You just go back to make yourself feel a little bit better about yourself. You're comparing your previous
Come
self
a
to you.
long way.
No? I love it.
At least I elevated.
It's been 52 minutes, man. It was a hell of a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And first of all, I just got to say, dude, I am like so happy that our like paths crossed. I know you met Miles, but then Miles connected us to you. Like hearing like and learning from you has been amazing and special. And I cannot wait to continue to follow and root you on and stay connected to you as you continue to go to Guatemala, maybe come to my bachelor party in South America, who knows. But even beyond that, because you know what? Elevators are going places because they have their mindset figured out. They know what they want, they know who they are, and they know what inspires them. So I commend you for going in as more than most of the people that we've ever met. Not going to college, doubling down, and just doing you, because that's what elevating is all about. So on behalf of Sam, myself, Elevation Nation, much love. We appreciate you, and we are so grateful to have you in the nation.
Appreciate it, guys. What a speech. I can't top that. I really appreciate it, and thank you guys for having me on.
Till next week, Elevation Nation. Peace. Stone, you fucking crush.